So I wanted to make a few videos that just went into a little bit more detail about eye makeup and different kind of like tips and tricks that will help you apply things that are just a little bit not necessarily more advanced, but just like a little bit more intricate than just like the basic eye makeup that I talked about in my corrective videos. So right now the only thing that's on my eyelids is eyeshadow primer. I use Krylons. I like theirs a lot. It's colorless. A lot of other brands make it, but that is personally the one that I use. You can also use concealer. You can use your foundation. Some people use like thicker like Kajal eyeliner pencils. Pretty much anything that is gonna have like kind of like a tack to it, that's gonna help your eyeshadows stay on longer, and also it's gonna help you get a more vibrant color. So in these videos, the first set, we're gonna just talk about applying different eyeshadows and different methods of applying it. So I'm gonna show you how to work with loose pigments and more like glittery, shimmery pigments, because sometimes it can be difficult to get those to kind of apply with a full color. So I'm gonna kind of talk you through that. And I also, you'll see like I don't have any concealer or foundation on underneath my eyes. So if I am doing somebody else's makeup especially, and I know I'm going to be working with something that is a loose pigment, which a lot more people are working with loose pigments now, as using pressed eyeshadows is just not really the most sanitary thing if you are working on a lot of different people. If you're working on just yourself, obviously you're the only one using them, so that's okay. But anytime I'm using a like loose powders or loose pigments, if I'm using anything with glitter, pure glitter, anything shiny or metallic, a lot of times you tend to get fallout, or even if you're just using like deeper colors or more vibrant colors even. So I don't really like to do somebody else's foundation or concealer until after I've done their eyes, just so that way I don't have to wipe off any of their foundation or anything if anything happens to travel to that area. So on myself, I never really do that. I powder a lot, so I don't end up with a ton of fallout, but if I am doing something like I am today where there is going to be more glitter and shimmer, I do prefer to at least do like my under eye concealer and everything afterwards. So I will add that at the very end as well. So the first things first, you want to have your primer on, and then next we're going to go ahead and apply some of the shadows. So we're going to do two different colors and two different kind of things, but the first thing I'm going to do, so if you are applying eye makeup, you could just do like one color, especially I feel like when you're on stage, if you at least have like one color to help your eyes pop, as long as you blend it out, it's perfectly fine to just apply one. So I'm going to use this purple shade. So this color is completely matte, and you'll see when I'm putting it on, I'm kind of patting it on. When you pat the colors on, that's always going to help you get kind of like a more vibrant and like even application. So that's kind of my first step. And then this is one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't do, is they don't go back and like blend everything. So you don't necessarily want to leave it just like this. So I'm going to take just a highlight color. So if this was the only color I was going to do, I could totally do that, but I'm just going to come in, and this could be with like whatever highlight you use on the rest of your face. It doesn't have to be a separate product, but I really just want to make sure that I kind of go in there and just kind of buff it out. And by doing that with like little circles, that kind of helps you really blend everything out. So as far as like what kind of brushes I use, if it's something where I'm applying a color to my lids, I like to have something that's like a little bit like flatter so I can pack it on more, but something fluffier is always going to help you blend. And since I am going to go back in and put in concealer, I'm not super worried about this spot, because that is eventually going to go away. But you could do just one color, put on your concealer, blend that out, and you'd be good to go. But we're going to do a little bit more complicated eye looks. So the way I always do my makeup is I like to put on kind of like this mid-tone first, and then I do the lighter color and blend those two together. And then I add in a darker color. Some people will use like a more skin tone shade all over their lid, and then build color on that. That's also okay. This is just the particular way that I kind of do my eye makeup, and that I've just kind of taken to doing it, but there's really like no wrong way to apply it as long as it ends up the way that you want it to look, essentially. So the next thing we have to do is just kind of add a little bit more dimension to this. So if we're trying to add dimension, that just means that we need something that is darker than this mid-tone, that's going to help us create a shadow. So we have something that's lighter than that, that's going to create the highlight and help it pop out. And then we need something that's going to be darker than this if we want to add dimension and kind of have it like recede a little bit more and just kind of draw more attention to it. So I'm going to stick with the purples on this side. And then, so the first thing I do, I like to add a lot of colors, but we're going to add kind of like a warmer toned purple to this. And so I usually use something that's like a little bit rounder and more densely packed. And so you want to find either if you naturally have a crease, wherever that is, to apply this, or kind of like when you open your eyes, it's like where I guess like the top of your eyelid kind of ends up. A lot of people end up, or it's like kind of halfway between like your eyebrow and your eye essentially is kind of where this crease would go. So you can like make it as dramatic as you want. I'm usually more into like a smoky eye kind of a thing. I don't really do like or wear cut creases on myself personally, but that is like a super trendy thing to do right now. And so when you do this, you just kind of like buff it on the end and through the center. And so I usually, like I said, I use a lot of different colors just because I really like color, so I use a lot. But really, as long as you have one shade that's a little bit deeper, it's going to help you get that dimension that you are looking for. And then, so this will be like that last deep shade that we use. Okay. And again, I'm always like on team you just apply it however, as long as you go back and blend it properly. It doesn't really matter how you apply it, but you can see like especially compared to this eye, adding just that little bit of purple, especially if I was going to be on stage, that helps to really pop my eye a little bit more. And then it also just kind of helps, adding in this darker color helps just draw even more attention to it. So if I was going to be really far away from people on stage, doing something like this really helps to draw a little bit more attention to my eyes. So now I'm just kind of going back in with that first like matte purple shade, and then at this point you're just kind of like going back and forth between all of the colors that you use, so the mid-tone and the highlight and the darker color, and you are just kind of blending it all together until you get the look that you are going for. Again, this is all my own like personal makeup and personal shadows, so I don't have to worry about like pouring it onto a palette or anything like that. But if I was using something that was out of my kit, I would need to be scraping this stuff off and putting it onto either disposable palette paper, which I think probably right now and for some time is going to be a better option than something that you have to worry about trying to get super sanitized after. And then, or you could put it on like a metal palette or plastic or something that you could really, really go back in and disinfect. And then another place that I like to add a little extra definition if you are trying to do that is I like to go under the eye, either with like kind of like one of the like other colors I use, maybe not the darkest one, but like if I used a couple different colors, or I'll go in with the darkest one. And I don't bring it all the way in because sometimes that can really kind of like make the eye look a little bit too small, but it's a good way to get a little bit of like a smoky eye effect without closing the eye too much. So I think a lot of times people think that if you do want like a really nice smoky eye, you have to make it super dark, but really I do smoky eyes with tons of different colors, so you could really use any color there is. It's really just more about like the way that you kind of like blend it out. But you could make this like a cut crease, you could just have it be super defined. You're basically just trying to do whatever you can to kind of add a little bit more definition is like all you're looking for. So the way to kind of make this different from what we've done in the other videos is, so I want to go ahead and I want to make this purple super glittery. But sometimes if you just apply, so I'll go ahead and do this. So if I just were to apply a really glittery shade over this, it doesn't always hold very well. So even if I pat it on, you can see that it's glittery, but it's not really that really intense like glitter look that we're seeing like on Instagram and everywhere. So to do that, you usually want to apply with like a wet brush. So by wet brush, I don't necessarily mean to use water. I actually like to use like a spritz like setting spray. So I have my little Urban Decay one, and then you just have to spray it down. And then again, if this is not your own personal palette, you really want to scrape this out, because sometimes the setting spray will kind of get to it and it will kind of make the consistency change a little bit. But just adding it on with like that little bit of a wet brush really makes a difference with how much it lets you pack the color on, and you get it to be like a much more intense and metallic finish than if it were just applied dry. And it also helps you not get a ton of fallout from it, because the glitter is not just like flying around everywhere. It's kind of being more controlled because it has that little bit of wetness to it. So I like to use setting spray for that. There's also plenty of like eyeshadow like mixing mediums and things that are out there, but I found like the aerosol setting sprays obviously aren't going to get you it as wet as you would need it to be, but the little spritz ones, especially like I love having these little small ones to take with me in my kit and stuff. This is great for that, and you might have to spray it a couple of times, like if I was doing my other eye, but for now that pretty much gets it as sparkly as I need it to be. And you can see I really don't have it everywhere compared to like if I had just applied this straight on my eyelid, it would probably be all over my face. And so at this point, we also have to go back in and blend again, because now that we have that on, that kind of like disturbed some of our blending. So we're just going to go in and kind of touch this up a little bit, so we can just go in and darken it. And then, so sometimes I get a little bit of fallout at this point because I'm kind of like disturbing some of the glitter, but I find using that wet brush is way easier, and you can do that with just like a pressed like pigment that's shimmery, anything that you really want to like intensify the shine and the glitter on. If you apply it with like a wet brush or over more of like a wet or tacky base, like sometimes there's like gels and things, it really helps it, and then it also just helps it stay on better as well. So I definitely recommend that if you are a fan of that really intense like metallic-y glittery finish like that. It makes it super fun. And then I also like to have a little brush like this, so just in case if I do feel like there's any fallout, I can get it. And then you can also just kind of use it to go in and really blend this out. And then again, you're kind of just going back and forth. And I already had my eyebrows filled in, but obviously if you didn't have your eyebrows, you would want to do that, especially if you're doing something for stage. But on stage it's really important that our makeup's not like running into our eyes and everything, and a lot of times you probably will have to wear some kind of like glittery or shimmery eye thing, especially I think a lot of like musicals and like dance shows and things incorporate that. So it's really important that you have something that you know is not going to get into your eyes and irritate your eyes if you start sweating or if you have to wear it for a long time. So I really recommend get a good primer and use like some kind of like wet like setting spray or like mixing medium or something to apply these things with, so that they can stay on and really help to kind of like intensify, but also just like I guess improve the quality is not the right word, but just help like intensify and make your eye makeup a little bit more long wear. So at this point we're going to want to add eyeliner to it. Before we do that, we're going to focus on the other eye, and I'm going to show you more of like a metallic and less of like a glitter finish. So we'll go ahead and call this one, as far as like applying the eyeshadow, complete, and then we're going to move on to the next eye, and then we will do liner and lashes.